Morning sunlight spilled through the family hollow, warming hanging herbs, woven baskets, shelves carved straight into the living room. Then came shouting, "Give it back! It's just a flute. It's my flute!" Rain lunged across the hollows. Chip twisted away, clutching the carved reed flute against his chest. "I was bringing it back. You took it behind my back. You weren't using it." Rain grabbed for it again. Chip pulled away. The two nearly crashed into the hanging herb bundle before a voice cut through the hollows. "What's happening here?" Mom stood by the low cooking stove, drying herbs over gentle heat. Smoke barely curled upward. Rain pointed immediately. "He took my flute." Chip crossed his arms. "I borrowed it." "You lost yours." "I did not lose it." Rain folded her arms. "Then where is it?" Chip opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Mom sighed slowly, the kind that already knew enough. "Good." Both children froze. "Your father can hear about this when he comes back from the hunt." Mom turned back towards the herbs. "Chip!" "Yes, Mom." "Go and dig up some ginger root." He groaned softly. She spoke with bass this time. "Today!" "Yes, Mom." She looked towards Rain. "Clothes basket. Go wash." Rain grabbed the tightly woven basket from the shelf. "At least my things stay where I leave them." Chip frowned. "I said I would bring them back." Mom never even turned around. "Work first." Outside the hollow, morning light moved through the branches. Rain headed towards the wash area, carrying a basket against her hip. Chip shuffled towards the root patch with digging stick. He clearly didn't want to use it. Inside, herbs dried slowly over heat. No big flames, no wasted smoke, just another morning beneath the trees. Far above the lower hollows, Porky followed his father quietly through the morning forest. Sunlight spilled through the towering branches. Bird calls echoed through the canopy. Somewhere overhead, a squirrel stopped sharply. Dad raised his hand. "Stop!" Both crouched beneath the thick root rise. Fresh claw marks marked the bark spot ahead. Dad pointed upwards. Movement. Tail. Branch. Squirrel. Porky reached for his bow. Quietly, carefully, he pulled, aimed, released. The arrow flew. Hit, but not clean. The squirrel cried out and scrambled higher, digging his injured back leg awkwardly towards the bark. Porky's face changed immediately. Dad was already moving, quick, controlled, and experienced. Dad repositioned beneath another branch. Drew, released. The second arrow struck clean through the throat. The squirrel dropped. Silence settled back over the trees. Dad retrieved the animal gently, with help from Porky. "Don't let your prey suffer." Porky stared down at the squirrel. "I thought I had it." Dad nodded. "I know." He checked the arrow salve. "If you were going to eat," he lifted the squirrel slightly, "we owe it to the clean death for the squirrel's sake." They walked deeper beneath the trees. After a while, Porky muttered, "All this work for squirrels?" Dad snorted softly. "Food doesn't appear magically, son." Porky smirked. It would be nice if it did." Dad checked the bowstring, loose string. He tugged it knot, and Hutton wrapped it. Weak knot. He glanced towards Porky. "Bad shot." Porky groaned. "Here we go." Dad kept walking. "Leaky roof." "Oh, come on. We told you to fix it." "I was going to fix it." "That wasn't the agreement." Dad's voice stayed calm. "You said you would." Small pause. "We trusted you had." Forest winds whisper through the upper branches. When you tell people you're going to handle something, Dad stepped over a root. Handle it. Back at the hollow, rain was wringing clothes besides the wash basket when Dad and Porky returned. Chip appeared a little too quickly from the ginger patch. Always suspicious. Parents notice those things. Mom handed Dad a bowl. Before you eat, she nodded towards the children. Something needs to be settled. Rain folded her arms immediately. Chip suddenly found the ground very interesting. Dad sat slowly. What happened? Rain answered first. He took my flute. Chip pointed. I borrowed it. You took it behind my back. I was bringing it back. You said that last time. Dad looked towards Chip. Is that true? Chip hesitated. Not long, but long enough. Dad nodded once. There it is. Truth. Quiet truth. The hard kind. Dad rested his bowl beside him. You lost yours? Chip looked down. You took hers? Silence. You didn't ask. Forest sounds drifted softly outside the hollow. Dad leaned back against the carved wood wall. When people trust words, he said quietly, they stop checking behind you. Porky shifted slightly. He knew this world. You said you'll do something? Dad continued. Do it. Rain stayed quiet. Chip stared at the floor. Dad looked between the three of them. Small problems go while people are busy pretending they're small. He let that sit for a moment. Then came the line. Simple Nomad read. Trust leaks faster than rainwater. Whack! Daniel's stone axe struck the wood, bounced more than it split. He stared at the mark it left. Barely moved, then a crack, then white sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. To humans, the wood would have looked like a stubborn stick. To nomads, it was a log. Daniel raised the axe again. Whack! Still not enough. Around him, other nomads, young, dragged branches, loaded small wagons, found with pieces of firewood that seemed determined not to break. Daniel breathed hard. I thought being grown meant people stopped ordering you around. A few of the others laughed. Porky stood nearby with his own axe, working on another piece that kept twisting away from him. Every time he swung, he hunted the food, Porky said. He swung. Whack! Now we gotta chop the firewood too. Another young nomad grunted as he pulled a wagon over a root. Ain't this supposed to be our celebration? The other workers nearby kept chopping. They didn't answer right away, but they heard every word. Daniel's father stood a few steps away, watching without saying much. He had been working longer than all of them, but he still moved with quiet strength. His hands were rough from years of carrying, cutting, building, and repairing. After another complaint slipped out, he stepped forward. Give me that! Daniel looked at him. I got it. His father held out his hand. Daniel passed him the axe. The older man set his foot, raised the stone blade, and brought it down. Whack! The wood split cleaner than any of theirs ever had. A few of the young men went quiet. He raised the axe again. Whack! Another clean split. Then on the next swing, his shoulder pulled wrong. He froze. Not long, just long enough. His hands tightened around the handle. His jaw tightened up. The axe lowered slowly. Daniel saw it first. Paul! His father shook his head like it wasn't nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Porky looked at Daniel. Daniel looked at the pile of wood still waiting. Something changed in the air at that time, and it was their mind. No one made a speech. It wasn't necessary, because Daniel stepped forward and took the axe back, but this time he didn't complain. Porky grabbed another piece of wood and set it on his right. The other young nomad moved too. One pulled a wagon closer, another one stacking split logs. Two more carried heavier pieces. Together, instead of trying to drag them along, the work did not become easy, but it became different. There was rhythm now. Axes rose, axes fell, wagons filled, wood piles grew. The older workers watched for a while, then joined where they needed to, not to carry the whole load, but to guide it. By the time the sun leaned higher through the branches, the young men were breathing hard. Their arms were sore, their clothes was dusty, and with bark chips all over them. During a quiet break, the older fathers called them together. They spoke for a while, not loudly, not even angrily. The young man stood among the split wood and loaded the wagons, listening. Near the end, one of the fathers said, to the young and to the tribes, give food, shelter, teaching. He looked across their faces. To the grown, it gives trust, work, responsibility. Then he let the words settle for a while. And what is given more is expected to carry more. Back near the cooking hollow, Rain worked beside her mother. The feast meat had been brought in baskets, wrapped in leaves and tied with cord. Squirrels, rabbits, small birds, bundles of crickets and grasshoppers, already sorted and clean. Rain's mother laid a squirrel across the prep board and showed Rain where to hold. Pull steady, she said. Not hard, steady. Rain held the hide while her mother worked in the loose with a small strap bone blade. The hide peeled back slowly. Rain made a face. Her mother noticed. You want the feast? You learn what comes before the feast. Rain nodded again and tried again. This time, she held better. The hide came free. Rain lifted it carefully. Should this go in the compost? Her mother turned real fast. Compost? Rain froze. Her mother took the hide from their hands. No, this goes for winter coats and blankets and pouches and cushions and liners. Maybe a pouch if it dries right. Rain looked at the hide differently then. Not waste. Something waiting to become useful. Rain reached for another piece from the board, a small hip bone, and held it over the compost basket, although she was getting ready to throw it in. Her mother caught her wrist. Rain! Don't put that hip bone in the compost. Rain blinked. How come? Her mother took the bone and held it between her hands. How do you think we make shovels? Rain looked at the bone, then at the small digging tool hanging by the wall. The handle was wrapped in a cord. The scoop was pale and curved. She smiled a little. Oh. Her mother dropped the hip bone into a separate basket. Compost is for peelings, stems, spoiled greens, and things that the ground can eat. Bones are tools if you know what to make from them. Rain nodded. Her mother pointed to another bowl. The hearts and the livers, they stay here. That's for dinner in our home. Rain looked towards the larger basket. And the rest? The feast cooks fresh. Her mother said, meat is best when the hunt is close. Rain worked slower after that, not because she was tired, but because she was starting to see things differently. Before the wood crew made it back, the pit crew was already working on the cooking grounds. To the humans, the pieces they carried would bend like rocks. To the nomads, they were stones, heavy ones. Two young builders rolled one into a place with a branch used as a lever. Another dragged a rope around a flat stone and rolled it while two others guided into line. One careful young builder had marked out 10 smaller circles. He placed each stone with care. Another young nomad stood nearby, staring at the pattern. Why 10? The careful builder didn't look up. Small fires cook better, he said. He pressed the stone deeper into the dirt. My dad said 10 pits. The other boy looked at the work, still waiting. 10 circles, 10 sets of stone, 10 fires to feed. Then he looked at the large open space in the middle of the cooking ground. Or the careful builder finally looked up. The other boy spread his arms wide. One big pit, one big fire pit, that is. The careful builder asked, one fire? The boy said, one roast. Stack the stones, and we're done. He grinned. Then we can go play. The careful builder frowned. My dad said 10, though. And my back says 1. A few of the others laughed. The careful builder looked at the tent circles again, then at the pile of stones, then opened the ground. If it looked faster, it did look easier. And after all, the feast was for everybody. One fire for the tribe. That sounded right enough. So the 10 circles disappeared. The stone moved inward. The pit grew wider. They worked faster now, proud of themselves for finding what felt like it was better. One builder tried to lift a stone higher along the side of the wall. Bigger the fire, the deeper the walls, he said, straining. His foot slipped in the mud. For one breath, he fought for balance. Then slip! He landed face first into the wet dirt. The whole pit crew burst out laughing. He pushed himself up the mud, dripping from his chin. Someone called it Big Pit. Another one shouted, Big Landing. Even the careful builder laughed then. Someone else pointed and yelled, Mud Face! He hated it immediately, but the name had a way of surviving in the tribe. A few days later, they shortened it to Mud. A few years later, everyone used it. By the time he was old, most of the younger nomads didn't even remember why. Only that once, 1 year ago, he fallen building a pit. By the time the wood crew returned, the large pit was finished. The young men came pulling wagons stacked with split logs. Their arms were sore, but they pulled with a better spirit than when they had left. Porky saw the pit first. That's new. Daniel wiped the sweat from his neck. That's big. The pit crew stood nearby trying to look proud and not like they had been playing moments later. Wood was unloaded. The killing had stacked. One of the firewood elders slowed beside the other elder as they looked over the pit. The first elder squinted. Huh? The second followed his glaze. Different way of doing it, huh? The first elder watched the boys carrying wood towards the wide stone circle. But I tend wood, he said, not cooking stones. The second elder gave a small grunt that could have meant agreement or tiredness. Then both of them went back to their work. The fire was laid. The first sparks caught. Flame curled up through the kindling. The wood, the boys watched, and it rose. As the sun began to lower, elders moved through the village, calling families towards the cooking grounds. Mothers came first, carrying wrapped food and baskets of herbs. Girls followed with bowls, roots, greens, bundles tied with cord. The air filled with voices. Not shouting, not chaos. A working kind of excitement. Rain walked through beside her mother with a basket held in both hands. Inside were prepared pieces of squirrel, herbs, and a few wrapped bundles of roasting. When they reached the cooking ground, several women slowed. One mother looked at the pit. Bigger than last year. Another tilted her head, studying it. My work is cooking, she said. After a moment, not asking why men changed the stones. That settled it even for the moment. Food was brought forward. Bundles was passed from the hand. Meat was laid near the heat. Herbs was rubbed in. The pit pick began doing what the boys had promised it would do. It cooked. And because it worked, no one asked too many more questions. The village gathered as the light turned gold. Children watched from the edges. Other nomads settled on roots and low seats. The young 20s stood, little taller than that they had that morning. They had hunted, they had chopped, they had hauled, they had helped build. Even Porky, who had started the day complaining, found himself carrying extra wood without being told. Daniel did the same. Every now and then, he glanced towards his father's shoulder. His father noticed once and gave him a small nod. Not praise exactly. Something better. Trust. For a while, everything felt right. The big pig glowed. The food smelled good. The work had begun a celebration. Then one of the men entered into the cooking ground and stopped. He was the father who had been given the pit instructions earlier that day. His eyes moved across the wide stone circle, across the single large fire, across the food already cooking. His face changed. Not anger at first, concern. One pit? He found his son near the edge of the pit crew. What happened to the 10? His son's shoulders got tense. For a moment, he looked towards the others. Then the words came out too fast. It wasn't my idea. The other boys looked at him. He pointed before he could stop himself. They thought it would be easier. The father stared at him. Not long, but long enough. Gather them. The son swallowed his spit, then called the others over. The pit builders came slowly, their earlier pride fading as they stood before the man who had given them the instructions on how to build the pits. Behind them, the fire crackled. Food cooked. The village continued arriving. The choice had already been made. The father looked at the large pit again, then at the boys. You changed my directions. No one answered. Why? Why would you do that? The Kelfer builder looked down. Mudface rubbed dry mud from his sleeve. Finally, one of them said, we thought it'd be faster. The father let out a slow breath. The fire popped behind him. Smoke curled up towards the evening air. He did not tell them to tear it down. He couldn't. The food was cooking. The village had gathered. The choice was already burning. So he gave them what he could still give them, a lesson. A faster way isn't always the wiser one. The boys stood quiet. Porky and Daniel heard it too because they stood nearby. The father looked from the fire to the wide wall stone, changing the direction because it seems easier. The smoke rose higher, can cost more than air, can cost more than anything. No one said anything. Not right away. The feast had begun. The people were gathering. The meat was cooking. And above the wide new pit, smoke climbed in the evening sky, higher than usual, thicker than usual. The feast was not over. Not yet. Life is more than fun and games. The celebration grounds were alive with music. Flutes played cheerful melodies, while drums echoed through the trees. Children danced between roots and stones, laughing as they spun in circles. Today was a special day. For weeks, the Nomads had prepared for the 20-year celebration. Food had been gathered, wood had been cut, the great feast pit had been built. Now the celebration had finally begun. The smell of roasting meat drifted through the forest. Near the cooking fire, Porky stood proudly with his friend Daniel. Daniel sniffed the air. "That squirrel smells good." Porky grinned. "It should." Daniel laughed. "Your dad's the one who cooked it." Porky folded his arms. "I still help." "You shot it in the leg." "I hit it, didn't I?" Daniel smirked. "Your dad finished the job." Porky pointed toward the roasted meat. "Yeah, but if I didn't hit it first, we'd be eating berries." The two boys laughed. Nearby, Chip rolled his eyes. "You two have been arguing about that squirrel all day." Porky shrugged. "It's an important squirrel." Daniel laughed again. "The most important squirrel in Nomad history." Around them, families gathered near the feast. Adults talked and smiled. Children chased each other around tree roots. Several elders played flutes while others clapped to the rhythm. Not far away, Rain danced with a group of girls. She twirled until she became dizzy and nearly fell over. Everyone laughed. Rain laughed too. This was her favorite kind of day. No chores, no lessons, no gathering firewood, just music, just food, just fun. Rain glanced toward the great feast pit. Smoke curled upward into the sky. Higher and higher it climbed. The fire was larger than any they had built in years. Nobody paid much attention to the smoke. Why would they? Today was a day for celebrating. And for the first time in a long while, everything felt perfect. High above the celebration grounds, a lone scout sat among the branches. His lookout platform was woven between three sturdy limbs near the top of an old oak tree. From there, he could see farther than anyone on the ground. The scout rested one hand on the trunk and slowly scanned the forest. To the west, he saw nothing but trees. To the east, more trees. To the north, a creek glimmered between patches of sunlight. Everything seemed peaceful. Below him, the sounds of the celebration drifted through the woods. Laughter, music, drums. Even from his perch, he could smell the feast cooking below. The scout smiled. It looked like everyone was having a good time. Then something caught his attention. Far in the distance, beyond a line of trees, sat a human campsite. The scout straightened. Humans weren't unusual. They occasionally camped in the forest. Most never came close to the Nomads. Still, part of a scout's job was paying attention. He narrowed his eyes. One of the humans stepped away from the campsite. The giant stretched his arms and looked out across the forest. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then the giant stopped moving. The scout followed the direction of his gaze. His stomach tightened. The giant was staring at the smoke, the thick gray column rising from the celebration grounds. The human pointed. Another giant stepped out from beside a tent. The two spoke for a moment. The scout couldn't hear their words. He didn't need to. Both giants were looking directly at the smoke. One of them shaded his eyes. The other pointed again, this time toward the forest, toward the nomads. The scout's smile disappeared. The giant took a step forward, then another. The scout watched carefully. The human wasn't just looking anymore. He was moving, heading toward the smoke, heading toward the celebration. The scout immediately stood. His heart began to race. Below him, the nomads were still dancing, still laughing, still celebrating. None of them knew what he had just seen. The scout grabbed a vine ladder hanging from the platform. Without hesitation, he started down the tree. Fast, very fast. The celebration needed to hear this, and they needed to hear it now. Meanwhile, in a deeper part of the forest, Sarah, Japheth, and Seth walked along one of the great branch paths high above the forest floor. Generations earlier, the founders had woven smaller branches together, creating sturdy walkways that connected tree after tree throughout the canopy. The three children carried baskets filled with berries and fruit for supper. At least they had been. Japheth stumbled over a knot in the branch. Several berries bounced from his basket and disappeared through the leaves below. Seth groaned. Japheth, "What? You dropped food again?" Japheth looked over the side of the branch. "Maybe it'll grow into a berry bush." "It doesn't work like that." "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Silly," Sarah laughed. Before Seth could answer, Japheth suddenly stopped. "What's that?" The others turned. Far beyond the treetops, a column of smoke rose into the sky. Japheth pointed. "The humans and their giant fires again." Seth squinted. "Looks bigger than usual." The smoke continued climbing above the distant trees. For a moment, all three simply watched it. Then Sarah wrinkled her nose. "I don't understand humans." Japheth shrugged. "What now?" "They build giant fires." "So?" "They cook dead animals over them." Japheth made a face. "Yeah, that's pretty disgusting." Seth laughed. "You two eat mushrooms growing on dead logs." "That's different." "How?" Neither of them had an answer. The three children continued along the branch path as the smoke drifted above the forest. None of them realized that the smoke wasn't coming from humans at all. Far away on the other side of the forest, the people responsible for that smoke were already moving. The warning had been given. The celebration was over. The scout hit the ground running. He raced through the forest as fast as his legs could carry him. Roots became bridges. Fallen branches became roads. Leaves slapped against his face as he pushed forward. Above him, birds scattered from nearby trees. He didn't slow down. Not once. The celebration grounds came into view. The music was still playing. Children were still dancing. The feast fire still crackled. Nobody knew what was coming. The scout burst into the clearing. "We have company on the way." The words cut through the celebration like a knife. The drums stopped. The flutes fell silent. Children froze where they stood. Adults turned. Even the laughter disappeared. The scout bent over, trying to catch his breath. An elder stepped forward. "What happened?" The scout pointed toward the distant woods. "A human." A murmur spread through the crowd. Several parents immediately gathered their children closer. The elder frowned. How close? The scout swallowed. He saw the smoke. Now the crowd became truly silent. Every nomad understood what that meant. The elder glanced toward the great feast fire. A thick ribbon of smoke still drifted into the sky. Are you certain? Another elder asked. The scout nodded. I saw him looking right at it. The clearing grew tense. The celebration suddenly felt very far away. One of the elders stepped beside the scout. Was he alone? I saw two humans at the campsite. Only one started moving. And the direction? The scout didn't hesitate. Toward us. Several nomads exchanged worried looks. The elder finally raised his hand. Everyone listen. The entire clearing became quiet. Even the children stopped talking. The celebration is over. A disappointed groan escaped several younger nomads. Rain's eyes widened. What? The elder continued. Put out the fire. Gather the food. Prepare the hollows. The village immediately sprang into action. Adults rushed toward the feast pit. Others began collecting baskets and supplies. Parents called for their children. The celebration that had taken weeks to prepare was disappearing before their eyes. Rain stared at the feast grounds in disbelief. They had only just begun. Nearby, Porky looked disappointed. Daniel looked disappointed. Chip looked disappointed. Every child in the village felt the same way. But the adults weren't arguing. The adults weren't complaining. They moved with purpose because they understood something the children did not. Fun could wait. Safety could not. The celebration grounds transformed in minutes. Where laughter had filled the air, urgency now took its place. Nomads moved quickly from one task to the next. The great feast fire was the first priority. Several adults grabbed shovels and began covering the flames with dirt. The fire flared and crackled as soil poured over it. A few stubborn flames fought to stay alive. Then they disappeared. Only thin wisps of smoke remained. Nearby, others gathered the food. Roasted meat was carefully removed from the racks. Pea baskets were filled. Supplies were collected. Nothing useful would be left behind. Rain watched in disbelief. The celebration wasn't slowing down. It was vanishing. Her father walked over carrying a basket. Come on, Rain. Rain frowned. Why? We have to leave. But the celebration just started. I know. Then why are we leaving? Her father looked toward the distant forest. Because sometimes important things happen. Rain folded her arms. That's not fair. Her father smiled gently. No, it isn't. Across the village, hidden mechanisms were already being released. Large supports were kicked free. Wooden pegs were removed. Slowly, giant coverings of bark, leaves, and branches settled into place. One by one, homes disappeared. Entrances vanished beneath natural camouflage. Within minutes, the village looked less like a village and more like ordinary forest. To a human passing by, nothing would seem unusual. Just trees, just leaves, just wilderness. The nomads had practiced this many times. Everyone knew their role. Everyone knew where to go. Soon groups of families began heading toward the hidden hollows. The feast grounds sat several feet away from the village. To a human, it wasn't much of a walk. To a nomad, it felt like crossing several city blocks. Rain followed beside her father, at least at first. As they walked, she kept looking back. The celebration grounds grew smaller. The music was gone. The dancing was gone. The feast was gone. Everything she had been excited about was being left behind. A lump formed in her throat. This stinks, she muttered. Her father chuckled. A little. A lot. Maybe. Rain kicked a pebble. I wanted to dance. You already danced. Not enough. Her father smiled. Rain wasn't smiling. Ahead of them, the line of nomads continued moving toward the hollows. Behind them, the abandoned celebration ground sat silent beneath the trees. Rain slowed her steps, then slowed again. Nobody noticed. Everyone was busy. Everyone was moving. Everyone was focused on reaching safety. Rain looked back one more time. The celebration grounds were still there, waiting. She took a step backward, then another, and while the village continued toward the hollows, Rain quietly started walking the other way. Rain walked slowly at first. She wasn't trying to run away. She wasn't trying to be disobedient. She simply wanted one more look, one more minute, one more chance to enjoy the celebration. The farther she walked, the quieter the forest became. Soon the sounds of the village disappeared completely. Rain didn't notice. She was too busy thinking about the feast, the dancing, the music, the games. Back with the rest of the village, the line of nomads continued moving toward the hollows. Parents counted children. Elders checked supplies. Scouts watched the forest. Everyone had a job. Rain's father glanced down, then froze. The spot beside him was empty. His stomach dropped. He looked behind him. No rain. He looked ahead. No rain. Rain! Several nearby nomads turned. Rain's father spun around. Rain! There was no answer. Chip stopped walking. What happened? Rain's gone. Porky's eyes widened. What do you mean gone? I mean she's not here. Immediately, several adults began searching the line of travelers. Rain? Has anybody seen Rain? I thought she was with her father. No, I thought she was with your group. The answers only made things worse. Nobody knew where she was. Rain's father took a step back toward the celebration grounds. I'll go get her. Before he could leave, two young scouts stepped forward. We'll find her. Rain's father hesitated. Every instinct told him to run after his daughter himself. But the village still needed to reach the hollows. The children still needed protection. The scouts were faster, and they knew the forest better than anyone. One scout nodded. We'll bring her home. The other tightened the sling hanging at his side. We know where to look. Rain's father looked toward the distant celebration grounds, then toward the approaching danger he couldn't yet see. Finally, he nodded. Bring my little girl back. The two scouts smiled. We will. Without another word, they turned and sprinted into the forest. One veered left, the other right, each taking a different path, each searching for the missing child. Meanwhile, Rain continued walking. The celebration grounds should have been nearby. At least she thought they should be. But every tree looked the same. Every root looked the same. Every path looked the same. For the first time all day, a small feeling of worry crept into her chest. Rain stopped. Slowly, she turned in a circle. The celebration grounds were nowhere to be seen. Rain stood perfectly still. A few moments earlier, she had been annoyed. Now she was scared. The celebration grounds were gone. The path back to the village was gone. Nothing looked familiar anymore. Tall roots twisted across the forest floor like giant walls. Bushes seemed larger. The shadows beneath the trees felt darker. Rain swallowed hard. Dad? Her voice sounded small. The forest gave no answer. Rain turned and started walking again. Maybe the celebration grounds were just over the next root. Maybe the village was behind the next tree. Maybe her father was nearby, but every direction looked exactly the same. A tear rolled down her cheek. Dad. Still nothing. Rain wiped her eyes. The knot in her stomach grew tighter. She wasn't upset anymore. She wasn't thinking about dancing anymore. She wasn't thinking about the feast anymore. She just wanted to go home. Dad! This time her voice cracked. The forest remained silent. Rain sat down beside a large mushroom. Tears began falling freely now. Dad! She buried her face in her hands. Not far away, Scout 1 moved carefully through the woods. He paused. For a moment, he thought he heard something. A faint sound drifted between the trees. Crying. The scout tilted his head. There it was again. Dad! Relief washed over him. Rain. He changed direction immediately and followed the sound. Around roots, over fallen twigs, between patches of ferns. The crying grew louder. Then he spotted her. Rain sat beneath the mushroom, tears streaming down her face. The scout smiled. Rain. Rain looked up. For a second, she simply stared. Then she jumped to her feet and ran toward him. I got lost. The words came out between sobs. I know. I couldn't find a village. I know. I couldn't find Dad. The scout knelt beside her. Your dad's looking for you. Rain sniffled. Really? Really. Before Rain could say anything else, she suddenly called out again. Dad! The scout's eyes widened. In one quick motion, he gently covered her mouth. Shh! Rain froze. The scout glanced through the trees, listening, watching. The human was still somewhere in the forest, far away perhaps, but not far enough. After a few moments, he lowered his hand. Rain's eyes were wide now. The scout spoke quietly. We have to be careful. Rain nodded. Can we go home now? The scout smiled. That's exactly what we're going to do. Rain slipped her hand into his. Together they started through the forest toward the hidden hollows. For the first time since getting lost, Rain felt safe again. She had no idea the biggest danger of the day was waiting just ahead. Rain stayed close to the scout, very close. She didn't want to get lost again. The scout led the way through the forest, carefully choosing each path. We're almost there, he said. Rain nodded. She was quiet now. The excitement of the celebration was gone. The adventure of sneaking away was gone. All she wanted was to see her father. The forest seemed different than before. Louder, stranger, more dangerous. A squirrel suddenly darted across a nearby branch. Rain jumped. The scout smiled. It's only a squirrel. Rain wasn't laughing. The two continued forward. Roots rose around them like walls. Fern leaves brushed against their shoulders. Somewhere overhead, a bird called out. Then the scout stopped. Rain nearly walked into him. What is it? She whispered. The scout didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on something ahead. Rain followed his gaze. At first, she didn't see it. Then she noticed thin silver strands stretching between two roots. A web, a very large web. The scout slowly stepped forward. More strands appeared, then more. The web spread across the entire path. Rain's heart began to pound. The scout's expression changed. He knew what this meant. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his eyes toward the center of the web. Rain followed and froze. A giant spider sat motionless among the strands. Its body was larger than a wagon. Its long legs stretched across the web like tree branches. For a moment, neither Rain nor the scout moved. Neither did the spider. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Rain squeezed the scout's hand. The spider's front legs twitched. One leg moved, then another. The creature slowly turned, facing them. Rain's eyes widened. The spider had seen them. The scout carefully pushed Rain behind him. "Stay back!" His voice was calm, but Rain could hear the tension in it. The spider began moving. One step, then another. The web trembled beneath its weight. The scout slowly reached toward the sling hanging at his side. Rain looked from the spider to the scout. The spider moved closer. The scout wrapped his fingers around the sling. The spider moved closer still. The distance between them grew smaller and smaller. The scout pulled the sling free. The spider stopped. Its many eyes watched him. Rain could hear her own heartbeat. The scout slowly reached into the small pouch hanging from his belt and pulled out a smooth stone. The spider took another step. Its long legs pressed against the web. The strands trembled. Rain backed away. The scout slipped the stone into the sling. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Rain nodded. She had no intention of doing anything else. The spider moved again, closer. The scout spun the sling once, twice, then released. The stone shot forward. Crack! The rock struck one of the spider's front legs. The creature jerked backward. Rain jumped. The spider backed up. A sound like dry leaves scraping together. The scout already had another stone ready. The spider began moving faster. The web shook beneath its weight. The scout fired again. Crack! This time the stone struck near the creature's face. The spider recoiled. Several legs lifted from the web. Rain stared in amazement. The scout wasn't trying to kill it. He was trying to convince it that they weren't worth the trouble. The spider hesitated. The scout loaded a third stone. The creature watched him. Neither moved. For a long moment, the forest stood silent. Then the spider slowly turned away. One leg, then another. It retreated deeper into the web. The scout lowered the sling. Rain finally released the breath she had been holding. Did we win?" she asked. The scout smiled. "Not exactly." Rain looked back toward the web. The giant spider had already vanished among the shadows. Then what happened? The scout slipped the sling back onto his belt. It decided to find an easier meal. He looked down the path toward home. "We should do the same." Rain nodded quickly. Neither of them wanted to stay near the web any longer. Together, they hurried deeper into the forest toward the hidden hollows. Together, Rain and the scout hurried through the forest toward the hidden hollows. Neither of them looked back. The giant spider was gone, and both hoped it stayed that way. "We're almost there," the scout said. Rain nodded. She was tired. Her legs hurt, and all she wanted was to see her father. A few moments later, the routes ahead began to change. What looked like an ordinary patch of forest slowly revealed hidden pathways beneath tangled roots and fallen branches. Nomads hurried in every direction. Families moved quickly toward concealed entrances. Children carried blankets and food bundles. Adults helped elders down narrow ramps hidden beneath leaves and moss. The warning had reached everyone. "We made it," Rain said. The scout smiled. "Just in time." The last villagers were already entering the bunkers. The hidden hollows stretched beneath the forest floor like a secret village. Storage chambers held nuts, grains, and dried food for storms and winter weather. Sleeping rooms branched away beneath giant roots. Lantern mushrooms cast a soft glow across the tunnels. Everything had been carefully hidden. To a human passing overhead, there was nothing to see. Only roots, only leaves, only forest. But beneath the ground, an entire community lived in safety. Rain spotted her father immediately. "Dad!" He turned. The worry on his face vanished. Rain! Rain raced forward and threw her arms around him. For a moment, he simply held her. I was worried sick, he said. I'm sorry, Rain whispered. Her father looked down at her. You gave us quite a scare. The scout finally caught up. She gave me one too. Several nearby children laughed. One of them pointed. What happened? Rain's eyes widened. You should have seen it. The spider? Another child asked. Rain nodded quickly. It was huge. The children gathered closer. It had legs this long. Rain stretched her arms as wide as she could. The scout laughed. It wasn't that big. Rain pointed at him. It was to me. A few more children laughed. Rain crossed her arms. Well, I thought it was going to suck all my blood. The bunker erupted with laughter. Even several adults smiled. Rain's cheeks turned bright red. What? Her father chuckled. The scout shook his head. I don't think that's how spiders work. Well, I wasn't staying around to ask. That brought another round of laughter. Slowly, the fear that had followed them through the forest began to fade. The doors were sealed. The village was hidden. Families were together. And for the first time since the warning began, Rain finally felt safe. Deeper in the forest, Japheth and Sarah finally returned home. Their family's bungalow sat high among the branches, hidden beneath thick leaves and woven vines. Japheth stepped onto the platform carrying his basket. His mother immediately noticed something. The basket wasn't full. She folded her arms. Boy, with picking this small, we won't have enough stored away for winter. Why didn't you fill it like you were told? Japheth looked down. I did, Mom, but I tripped and lost a bunch of it to the ground. Before his mother could answer, a familiar voice spoke from across the platform. His father. Boy, do you remember what I told you would happen the next time you tripped? Japheth sighed. Yes, sir. His father nodded. Then tell me what happened. Before Japheth could answer, Sarah stepped forward. Sir, he saw human smoke beyond the trees. The change was immediate. His father's expression hardened. Human smoke? Sarah nodded. East side of the forest. His father moved to the railing and looked across the canopy. Though the smoke had faded, he knew what it meant. The giants are in the forest again. He turned back toward Japheth. Go. Japheth blinked. Go where? The elders. His father's voice was firm. Warn them. Trouble is on the ground. Japheth nodded and hurried away. Behind him, Sarah carried the basket to the sorting table. She separated berries from nuts and grains. The berries would be eaten soon. The nuts and grains would be stored away inside the village hollow for storms, winter weather, and hard seasons. Nothing was wasted. Meanwhile, Japheth raced across the branch roads, past homes, past gathering platforms, past rootborn carrying water baskets from the lower lifts. Finally, he reached one of the village elders. Sir, Japheth said, trying to catch his breath, my father told me to show you something. The elder followed him through the canopy. Together they crossed several branch roads before reaching the eastern edge of the village. Japheth pointed, over there. The smoke was thinner now, almost gone, but still visible. The elder narrowed his eyes. For several moments he said nothing. Then he turned and struck his spear against the platform. The sound echoed through the trees. Rootborn heads turned. Children stopped playing. Workers paused. The elder raised his voice. Hear me. The village grew silent. No one is to travel to the ground. Whispers spread among the gathered rootborn. The elder continued. Not until we say otherwise. Far below, Hidden beneath the canopy, the forest waited. Meanwhile, the second scout hurried through the forest. He moved quickly between roots and ferns, doing his best to return to the hidden hollows. Rain was safe. At least he hoped she was. Now he just needed to get home. Then he heard it. Crack! The scout froze. A moment later came another sound. Thud, thud, thud. His stomach tightened. No animal in the forest made footsteps like that. Only humans. Slowly, he peeked around a root. A giant moved through the trees. The scout immediately ducked back into hiding. Human. His heart began pounding. The giant hadn't seen him. At least he didn't think so. The scout waited and listened. The human stopped. He sniffed the air. Huh. The giant looked around. Smells like somebody's been cooking out here. The scout's eyes widened. Uh-oh. The human stepped closer. Probably some teenagers camping. The scout swallowed hard. Teenagers? The giant thought humans were nearby. That meant he wasn't leaving. He was looking. The scout carefully backed away. The human continued forward. Unfortunately, he was heading in the same direction, toward the hidden hollows. No, no, no. The scout glanced around, then spotted a nearby tree. Without wasting another second, he climbed. Higher, higher, until thick branches surrounded him. There he pressed himself against the bark and tried not to move. Below, the giant continued searching. The scout held his breath. Every footstep shook leaves loose from nearby branches. Thud, thud, thud. The giant stopped again. The scout squeezed his eyes shut. Please go away. When he looked again, he noticed something nearby. The raven. One of the village ravens sat quietly on a branch. The bird seemed completely unconcerned. The scout wished he felt the same. Below, the giant slowly turned, then looked upward, not directly at him, just upward, but that was enough. Panic exploded through the scout. He sees me! The scout jumped. The moment his feet left the branch, he realized his mistake. Oh no. The ground rushed up toward him. The scout flailed wildly. I don't want to be human food! Suddenly, black wings burst through the air. The raven launched from his branch. The bird swept beneath him at the last possible moment. Whoomp! The scout landed across the raven's back. The bird squawked loudly in protest. The scout grabbed a handful of feathers. Please don't drop me! The raven ignored him. Together they shot through the forest. Branches flashed past. Sunlight flickered between leaves. Wind rushed against the scout's face. Far below, the giant grew smaller and smaller. Only then did the scout finally breathe. A few moments later, the hidden hollows came into view. The last villagers were already disappearing inside. The raven landed hard on a nearby branch. The scout tumbled off. Oof! He scrambled to his feet and raced towards the entrance. Just before the hidden doors closed, he slipped inside. Several villagers turned toward him. Then he spotted Rain. Rain smiled and waved. I'm right here. The scout stopped. Relief washed over him. You made it. Rain nodded. The scout took a deep breath, then grinned. I thought I was human food today. Several children laughed. Even Rain giggled. For the first time since the warning began, the scout finally felt safe. Outside, the forest grew quiet once more. The excitement inside the hidden hollows lasted long after the doors were sealed. Most of the children couldn't stop talking about the scout story. A raven really carried you? It sure did. Were you scared? The scout folded his arms. No. Several children stared at him. The scout sighed. Okay, maybe a little. The bunker erupted with laughter. Rain grinned. I would have screamed. I did scream. That brought another round of laughter. Soon the stories began to fade. The Nomads spent the night inside the hidden hollows. No one took chances, not with the smell of humans still lingering in the forest. The great root doors remained sealed. Families stayed together. Children slept beside their parents. Even the scouts remained inside. Outside, the forest carried on without them. Rain woke several times during the night. Each time she listened carefully. No giant footsteps, no strange sounds, only the distant rustle of leaves. By morning, the village elders made a decision. It was time to learn whether the danger had passed. One of the scouts volunteered to check the forest. The villagers waited and waited and waited. Rain was beginning to think he would never come back. Finally, footsteps echoed through the tunnel. The scout returned. Several villagers gathered around. "Well?" one elder asked. The scout smiled. "The coast is clear." A wave of relief spread through the bunker. "The human is gone," the scout answered. "I checked the old campsite, the trails, and the surrounding woods. Nothing." The elder smiled. "Then it's time." One by one, families began leaving the hidden hollows. Sunlight poured through the entrances. Fresh air filled the tunnels. The village slowly came back to life. Later that morning, Rain's father approached carrying a bundle wrapped in soft cloth. Rain looked up. "What's that?" Her father smiled. "A gift." Rain carefully opened the bundle. Inside was a beautiful new outfit made from the fur of a rare white rabbit. The fur was soft and bright. Rain's eyes widened. "For me?" Her father nodded. The village shared the spoils after the hunt. Rain gently touched the white fur. "It's beautiful. Your mother thought it would make a perfect outfit for you." Rain looked down at her new clothes and smiled. Rain disappeared into the family hollow, carrying the bundle. A few minutes later, she emerged again. The conversations around the village began to slow. Several heads turned. Rain smiled shyly. The new outfit fit perfectly. Soft white rabbit fur lined the edges. The bright fur stood out against the woodland colors of the village. Her mother smiled. "I told you it would look beautiful." Rain spun once. The soft fur moved with her. Several children gathered around. "Wow, that's nice. You look like a snow rabbit." Rain laughed. Even her father smiled. After everything that had happened, she finally felt better. The smoke, getting lost, the spider, the long night in the bunker, all of it suddenly felt far away. Outside, the forest swayed gently in the morning breeze. The danger was gone. The village was safe. And standing beneath the morning sunlight in her new white outfit, Rain felt like the luckiest girl in the forest.
Thank you for joining my story.
But the forest still has more stories to tell.
Join us next Tuesday.
And every Tuesday after.
Tune in for the next episode, A World of the Nomads. If you enjoyed this episode, like, subscribe, and share, and hit the comments. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you want to see more of. Let's talk.